happy to share with you our good practices on reunification, reintegration, and building resilience of victims of human trafficking in Uganda, but also in Nigeria. We have two focal panelists. One of them is Mr. Rogers Kasiye, who will be sharing with us the good practices that we have seen in Uganda and in Nigeria for trying to reunify and also family reintegration of victims of trafficking. We'll also be listening in from Glimete, one of the key partners of UYDEL from ECPAT France, who will be sharing with us how they came about documenting these good practices. And then we'll also have general discussions from everyone. So thank you very much for joining in. Thank you for being with us this morning, this afternoon, and this evening from wherever you're coming in from, or from wherever you're logging in from. We appreciate, and we are happy that UNODC was very kind to us to share in this side event. So thank you very much, UNODC, for putting together this session and for allowing UYDEL to share our good practices, and also our partner ECPAT France. So thank you very much. I would like to now invite Glimete from ECPAT France. Glimete, I hope you're there. You're most welcome. Please log in right now. We have 2 minutes for you to share how we came about the documentation of the good practices and a little bit of the background on ECPAT France. Glimete, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone. Sorry, my sound was blocked. Yes, hello. I'm very happy to be with you. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Rogers. I just wanted to say a few words regarding this mission of Rogers and UYDEL to exchange the good practices regarding family reintegration. I don't know if everybody knows the network ECPAT. We are an NGO working to fight against child sexual exploitation, and we are having a different project in Africa and in East and West Africa, and we have been working with UYDEL, with Anna and Roger since many years, and it's a really strong partner to fight against child sexual exploitation. I just wanted to give the framework of this presentation and all the good practices that will be exchanged today. And just to say that one of our targets of ECPAT France is to share these good practices, to have exchanges and good lessons to exchange with our partner in order to improve the capacity of the civil society to fight against child sexual exploitation, and in particular the trafficking and trafficking of youth and girls in particular, trafficking for sexual purposes. So the mission, Rogers have done a mission and with ECPAT France in the Edo state of Nigeria, and I want first to thank our two amazing partners there. It's a Girls Power Initiative, GPI, and Euromi GPCI, two partners working to reintegrate and to support girls victims of sexual trafficking, in particular in the Edo State in Nigeria. So I want really to thank there to have been shared their practices, because there is different methodologies between East Africa and between Uganda and Nigeria. So I know that Roger have made a lot of recommendations and has integrated a lot of good practices to be shared as regard the family reintegration. So I also want just to thank all the beneficiaries, the other partners that have been shared their practices and exchanged with Rogers, and say say to all the attendants today that I hope they will have very rich exchanges to improve the family reintegration and give better protection to all these children victims of sexual exploitation. Many thanks for this invitation and for organizing this event. Thanks.
Thank you, Guillemette. We truly appreciate those remarks. You have ably shared with us why it's important for us to have protection measures for victims of human trafficking and why we should pay more attention to the reintegration packages that we give to the victims of trafficking and also how we help them recuperate after the diversities that they have gone through or the various vulnerabilities and experiences that they have gone through during their experiences of when they are being trafficked. So right now, I want to invite our main speaker, Mr. Rogers Kasirye, who will be sharing with us the good practices towards successful family reunification and reintegration and building resilience in the aftermath of human trafficking in Uganda, but also in Nigeria. So Mr. Rogers Kasirye is the Executive Director for Uganda Youth Development Link, and we would want to appreciate his agreement or his allowing to share this vast knowledge that they have done with ECPAT France. Mr. Rogers Kasirye, thank you for coming, and please take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the introduction. I also take this time to appreciate the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, for allowing us to be part of the ongoing conference. I know today is the last day, but for allowing us to have a side event and share. And what is interesting is that we picked on an area which has not been given a lot of prominence, and we'll be sharing now our presentation. But thanks to ECPAT France for allowing us to be part of this effort, but also WFD, World Federation Against Drugs, which from time to time says, can you share and build others? So we are very grateful, but also very grateful for the organizations which accepted us and the young people who participated. So now I'll take this time to share briefly, and then we can see what came out. Because every time we talk about human trafficking, particularly for women and children, we are reminded of this blue heart, which represents the sadness of those who are trafficked, while reminding us of the cold-heartedness, the stories you hear when you talk to these survivors, the children, you really cry. So the Blue Cross always reminds us, and thanks for whoever accepted that we should share about this because of the cold-heartedness of those who buy and sell fellow human beings. My interest was drawn, first of all, when UNODC invited me to the UN stakeholders engagement in July. But as also you know, civil society is an essential partner for the UN to deliver to the needy people, particularly these who are affected by human trafficking, affected by crime, affected by drugs. But also what I know is that also this is part of the Sustainable Development Goals. If you look at Article 16 or Section 16.2, it requires us to target young people who have been sexually exploited, those who have trafficking, and all those who are facing all forms of violence. So I'm very grateful for ECPAT France for allowing me to visit Nigeria, particularly Edo State, where I was able to interface with two organizations. But also this reminds us that in Africa, efforts to protect migrant workers and those who have been trafficked, our efforts are really very, very minimal. And that is a big what? That is a very big challenge. Okay, and as you are aware, they are taking a whole week to reflect on the United Nations Convention against transorganized crime. And as you are aware, the protocols assist the states to implement, to prevent, suppress, and punish those affected by trafficking. But also when you look at other protocols, they are intertwined. If you look at smuggling of migrants, you look at crime, you look at drug abuse, all these are intertwined. to the UN Convention Against Transorganized Crime. And what you will be able to see is that globally, when we talk about survivors of trafficking, survivors of human trafficking, survivors, we see that 1 in every 3 victims is a child. 1 in every 3 is a victim is a child. But also we are aware that the share of children among children, especially coming out of COVID, the victims have tripled. And when they reach a destination and also while in transit, the victims face untold exploitation, sex abuse, and others are unpaid and underpaid. And you know, their freedom is to move is curtailed. But also we see a lot of, you know, when you hear from the young women, the survivors, you hear that they are tightly guarded with states of violence and extreme violence. And for example, when you look at the information coming out of Nigeria, Nigeria has one of the best practice, by the way, and a good example of NAPTI, the Nigerian body which is in charge against human trafficking. It tells you that the number of those who are trafficked is largely domestic, but also they go ahead to tell you that almost 40% go out of the border. In other words, trafficking does not only stop in the country, but goes out of the border. But also they keep to tell you that in Nigeria has many states, but in Edo State, Central Edo State, Nigeria, there are many victims which have come back. There are many victims who have been brought back. There are many returnees. And when we discuss this and share with you, we are able to see how we can block the influx of young girls to Europe, to West Africa, to Middle East, to the Gulf states and Asia. And actually East Africa also faces similar problems. Now, we've got huge numbers of young people who have been trafficked to the Gulf state. And when you hear testimony, they tell you that there are many Ugandans in the prison, there are many Ugandans there are many Nigerians who are in the prison. So both countries are affected. And we are saying now, how are we going to help these young people who are being affected by human trafficking? One of the interesting documents which has come out from UNODC has had to do with how the compendium by UNODC, which has suggested promising practices. One of the recommendations is that they want the civil society, the public sector, the private sector, and people who have been affected by human trafficking to understand the interplay between these actors. And they have written some documents which help you to appreciate this. But also what we've noted is that UNODC is recommending that all actors in human trafficking need to engage all actors, not only civil society, not only the government, but the business sector, the community, and everybody must be engaged. They're also recommending how you can access the role of the financial sector, but also how to involve other people. Now, this case study which we are sharing with you, the exchange of good practices between Uganda youth, Uromi JDPCI, and the Girl Power Initiative in Edo State, who participated in this study and were assisted by IFRA Nigeria in the Research Institute, but also with the funding from ECPAT France and ECPAT Luxembourg, wanted to document and say, are there good things we have learned when we receive survivors? When young people return from abroad, what are those good practices can we share? And one of the reasons why we must share, because a lot of emphasis is put on law enforcement, on prostitution, on awareness, but little input, little sharing is hard, is how do you help girls and women who have been trafficked and they have come back to the country, come back with literally nothing, and they have nowhere to start. Now, these were some of the engagement meetings we had in Uromi, Justice for Development in Uromi, Edo State, but also thanks to Mabel and the team at the Girl Power Initiative, which have been doing a lot of work, but also who were supported by ECPAT France. Of course, this is Uganda. I'm showing you one of the shelter. And also, as I share this about reunification and reintegration, I want to make a disclaimer. Whatever is being shared is largely my opinions, what I was able to capture. Because also when I was capturing the good practices, I never assessed the shelters, I never assessed the funding, but largely what we saw and what we felt we can share with others. Now, the first area which we found was very helpful, was the reunification and reintegration. And I think I need to make this clear, because when we talk about family reunification and integration, I'm talking about the receipt, the time when you receive a survivor, when you receive a survivor, a returnee, and the social worker assesses, identifies the needs and the services, assist the survivor to draw a plan to be reunited with the family. And this can be done through tracing, this can be done through reunion or post-settlement follow-ups to resettle and help the young woman or that young man who has come back to adjust and settle successfully with a aim to minimize trafficking. Now, what are some of the good things we found? The first one was tracing and be able to screen. We found that all these organizations I'm talking about, they have developed careful intervention where they are able to assess, identify the needs of the survivor and assist the survivor to draw a plan. If you don't have a full comprehensive assessment, you may not be able to draw a plan on how to help. But also that assessment will show you that most of these survivors who are coming back have multiple needs, not one single need. They even sometimes their families deny them. They have gone, they were trafficked, they promised to bring back a lot of money. They reached there, they were arrested, detained, now they have been deported. But also what we show is that social workers need to be available from the time of receiving the returnee, the survivor, for several months. In other words, this is not a one-day event. This takes a lot of time. And that was acknowledged by Girl Power Initiative, JDPCI in Uromi, but also the experience in Uganda showing that even some of the young people who are being admitted, some of the young people who are being received by the countries and put in the shelters, some don't even want to go back to their families, which makes it a little bit tricky and a little bit interesting. They want self-reintegration. Others want to live independently. So sometimes even family reunification may not be possible. But also from the experience we had when we discussed in the Edo State by the two NGOs, that when you are working with survivors, it takes time. Survivors keep changing decisions, keep changing their mind, keep changing. But one thing which we learned from Nigeria and Uganda is that, please, can you avoid multiple interviews where the driver, where the askari, where the staff, where everybody is interviewing the girl? Please, can you avoid? Let's have one person or two people interviewing, but the policeman is interviewing, this one is interviewing, and that brings credibility problems and confidentiality issues. So one of the best practices, can you avoid multiple interviews? Counseling was also identified. You must counsel the survivors, counsel the families. You must be able to link the family to the socio-economic resources. You must counsel in order to give the emotional support. Sometimes even the counseling goes beyond the survivor and the family, and you have to deal with the community. The community has been anticipating that when the girl returns, she'll bring a lot of money, she'll build houses, but here is a girl literally with nothing. So counseling goes beyond. But also what we have noticed that survivors have multiple needs. They'll tell you, agencies working with these girls, they'll tell you that these girls need straight away access to medical facilities. Because some have been involved in prostitution, some have been abused, some have even experienced HIV/AIDS, some may be HIV/AIDS positive, others come back when they're pregnant, others have even had children who have no fathers, others experiencing drug abuse, others are experiencing, we are now beginning to see young people who have been trafficked in the Gulf states, whose organs have been removed. And literally they bring you a young woman who says that my organs or my kidneys were taken out. So that's why survivors must be assisted. And what we notice is that they have multiple health issues. Also, we were told in Nigeria and also in Uganda that legal support is a key component of reintegration because many of them are facing violence. Others are victimized. The others, their property was grabbed. Others were never paid. Others, even before they traveled, most of the property were sold in homes and people are demanding to be paid back. Some of these wait for them at the airport and said, bring back my money. We sold their property. Others took loans. So sometimes legal support, and actually what was interesting that we found in Uromi JPDCI, they had engaged 2 lawyers who are working full-time to give support. And in other words, if you are going to help survivors, legal support is very key, but engaging a lawyer, having a lawyer with you will be very, very expensive. But also, sometimes when they are going to prosecute, for example, the good practices we had in Nigeria about nothing, they'll need the survivors to give evidence, to support the prosecution. And this was very helpful. So the social workers must be trained in order to be able to help. But interestingly, one of the good practices coming out is the survivor involvement. Please, you must engage, you must listen, you must learn and help to lift their voice. Involving survivors in mentoring even others who have just come, to give them assurance that you can manage. Even if you have been deported, you have been detained, you are exploited, and actually a survivor who has gone through this dehumanizing experience is the best person, is one of the best person to be part of that intervention. Ask survivors to visit others, to visit other returnees, to help them build and adjust. Ask survivors to undertake activities. And what was interesting, Galpa Initiative and UROMI and also at Uganda UYDEL, they had established forums to hear and get survivors give their views so that they could tap on their experience and be able to help. So survivor involvement is coming out also as one of the key factors. Psychosocial support. Identify the psychological needs and give the psychosocial support. You must always draw a case management plan. We found that all these 3 organizations, because of the experience, had developed case management plans, which even involved others, which allowed the referral, which allowed the tapping from the resources of others. We also saw that they were doing other sessions on resilience building, on how to adapt and how to cope. They were teaching our people to be grateful and gratitude, because those who have gone through that, they'll never trust anybody. They'll never love anybody. They were doing activities which were peer-led, young people themselves speaking to other survivors, and this was very helpful. Now, apart from counseling, apart from survivor involvement, psychosocial support, legal support, then the issue of economic empowerment was very important. Thanks to the projects have allowed that survivors be assisted to get capital so that they're able to start some enterprises. And we found very good experience, for example, by UROMI JDPCI. Thanks to the priests and the social workers who are working there, the girls were doing very wonderful projects. The same with Girl Power Initiative, but also what we had from the girls from Uganda. And this improved their livelihood and helped to build resilience. Orienting girls, orienting survivors who had gone through this, accessing them to capital. But interestingly, don't teach one skill, don't teach one vocational skills, because many of the girls who go and return, some of them don't have any skill of survival. Teach multiple skills, help them to get multiple sources of income. We found girls who were doing businesses, some were doing hairdressing, in addition they were selling creams, they were doing many activities, they were selling some water, so that the girls are able to adjust and also able to procure secure livelihood. This was very, very, very important. You can see some of the pictures, but also we learned that apart from assisting the survivors, support the families of survivors. Even families where girls and young people are at the verge of being trafficked, support them, identify them, give some income generating activities so that young girls are not attracted. And this came out very clearly at the Girl Power Initiative, at UROMI in Edo State, JDPCI, which was very good. Now, apart from that, also what comes out clear is that you need to do capacity building for social workers. The staff must be trained. Thanks to NAPTIP. NAPTIP has been training, has been supporting these 2 agencies, and also teaching them to supervise, to monitor, but also how to do business enterprises, how staff and those staff who got multiple skills that they can help what? They can help other staff. So these are good practices. Sometimes we wonder, is there anything good which can come from Africa? Yes, I want to agree that the experience in Nigeria, the experience in Uganda in terms of receiving returnees and survivors of human trafficking, there is a lot we can do. There is a lot we can do. But integration is a long-term process. That's what we had. But to do this, you have to collaborate. between the government and the non-government organization, government partners. Actually, the needs which are presented cannot be addressed by one. You need many people. You need many people to work with you. You need to have partnership and networking. Anna, allow me briefly to go through these last slides, which help to put the things clear. And we are also sharing the presentation along the sides. You can copy it and put it on your computer, but also be able to share with you. Assessment is very important. NGOs, we are networking with government, because many times government receive the survivors, the returnees. You must be working, tracing and collection of information from the survivor is important. Meetings, the staff and the families of the returnee, identifying the survivor needs and services. Again, counseling is very important. We are breaking things down here because of trauma, suicide, depression, educating the community about human trafficking, and all this were being done. Again, survivor involvement is also coming up, identifying the needs and working with the family and supporting the family. Psychosocial support again is coming up, which is built on having a strong case management process, promoting life skills, teaching young people to have life skills and all that were very important. Lastly, this is my last slide, Anna, economic empowerment. Economic empowerment of survivors and their families, but also reintegration and business social support and access to capital. These young girls want money. The reason why they travel, they were able to go through all those hard times, is that that's a problem of money. Any intervention to have impact must have a business, a social enterprise angle, where you assist girls to access capital either through groups or from the banks or from the private sector. And that is very important. And lastly, we were told from what is coming out from Nigeria that this is a long-term process. You don't receive a girl, take her there, abandon her, and do all that. I think this is what brief I wanted to share. These documents are available on ECPAT website, but also we are posting them there thanks to Cressida, thanks to WFD, but also thank you, ECPAT France, but also the UN Civil Society Unit at UNODC, which keeps supporting us to learn from this experience and do something. But I think what I can see now, there are practices, good practices coming up on how you can assist a survivor from a low-income country. Thank you so much, Anna, for allowing me to share. Okay, God bless you. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kasia. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have heard it from the professionals on reintegration and reunification. Mr. Kasia brings quite vast experience and information and knowledge to do with survivors on human trafficking and how we can properly reintegrate them and make sure that they are successful with reunification. He raises key concerns of survivor involvement. He raises key concerns on having a case management plan. He also raises key concerns on economic empowerment. So without wasting much time, since we are running out of time, allow me to invite Barbara Nachijoba, the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer for UYDEL, who will also offer some discussions on what has been presented, but also share with us any key aspects in terms of data and what we have seen as Uganda, especially in UYDEL data that has to do with reintegration of survivors of human trafficking. So Barbara, the floor is yours. Thank you. You're most welcome. Barbara, you have 2 minutes. In 5 minutes, kindly share with us your experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Anna. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Ms. Gulimete. Those were wonderful presentations. My name is Barbara Nachijoba. I'm the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Officer for UYDEL. And I think the presentation that was made by Mr. Rogers was really comprehensive, looking at all aspects of the young person. When you're doing reintegration, I think it's very important to stress the holistic aspect of the young person. So when you're looking at the needs of these young people, there are always push factors that force them into, first of all, environments which increase their risk of exploitation and abuse, but also risk of trafficking. So when we are supporting them as an organization, we have realized what works is, first of all, doing a needs assessment for each of the young girls and understanding what is the reason that pushed them, first of all, into exploitation and abuse. And then from there, we are able to design interventions, like Mr. Rogers talked about, case management, and be able to provide specific intervention to address each of those needs of the young person. So when we are looking at reintegration, we really need to stress so much the push factors, the economic factors. For example, many of the young girls and boys that we have seen in these situations, many of them are coming from low resource backgrounds. Many of them are facing issues of economic deprivation that in turn make them more vulnerable to get into these environments where they are exploited and abused. Then the psychosocial factors are also important. We really need to stress so much counseling, providing a psychosocial support in order to ensure, because many of them present issues of mental health, depression, anxiety, trauma. So when we are providing them, before we reintegrate them, we really make sure that we address the psychosocial aspects and the economic aspects. And recently, we have seen a wave of so many girls who are being trafficked into the Gulf. And the trend now is that many of them are being sold on online platforms. For example, we have applications like you see the WhatsApp app. There's an app where they are specifically selling young girls into forced labor. Some of them are being sold for means of exploitation, sexual exploitation and abuse and others. So I think we really need to look at some of these contemporary forms of slavery and see how best we can actually respond and support some of these young girls, because I think the trends have really changed, especially after COVID. There are so many online platforms of sexual exploitation and abuse on TikTok. So those are some of the, I think we need to strengthen the OXEA, the response towards OXEA, yes. So I think that is it from me. I'll go back to Madam Anna, or I'll handle a Q&A session right now. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free. I don't know if we are allowed to unmute, or we are only going to post these questions in the comment section. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Now we are open to discussions or questions in the next 7 minutes that are left for our session. Please feel free to unmute yourself and say something, or share in the chat if you have any questions or if you have any comments. We have 7 minutes before we end our session, and we would like to utilize that for the question and answer.
Please raise your hand if you would like to be unmuted.
Thank you, Cressida. As we wait for the hands to come, please feel free to type in the chat your name, your organization, and the country from which you're logging in. We thank you for logging into this session and for the interest in ensuring that we have good practices documented in reintegration and reunification of victims of trafficking. Cressida, do we have any hands?
No, we don't have any hands for now.
Okay. And I don't think we have anything in the chat. Okay, I will give Mr. Kasia to, okay, I can see a hand from Femi. Femi, please feel free to unmute yourself and say something.
Okay, I just want to appreciate Anna Nabuya and that eloquent presentation from that man there. He spoke very eloquently, and we appreciate your effort in Nigeria. I was surprised at how much you have achieved in Nigeria. I am in Nigeria myself, and we work in Nigeria. Our organization is Sura and Obani for Youth Development Initiatives. We are already in a high-level discussion with NACTIP, as well as Nigeria Immigration Services to have a very comprehensive partnership so that we can intervene in other states, because concentration so much, people are concentrating their effort on Edo State. Meanwhile, Edo State is the epic center. True, if you want to talk about human trafficking, it got to a point in time that the paramount ruler of that state, His Royal Majesty, had to cause some people who are engaging in that illicit trafficking in that state, taking the women on sexual exploitation to Italy's and the like. We are also in partnership. We are in advanced discussion, and maybe after this 11th session of the transorganized crime, it's possible to, we still reach out to ourselves too, so that we can have a way of partnering together, exchanging peer review mechanism on the way we can constructively engaging ourselves and address this issue headlong. That's my contribution, Ms. Anna. I think we participated in a conference together about 2 months ago with Vienna NGO, I think Alliance on Crime. I saw 2 of us were there representing Africa. So it's a play or two. I want to appreciate your effort, Ms. Anna Nabuya.
Thank you very much, Femi. We appreciate your comments. I'll let Mr. Kassié make a comment to Femi's submission. Thank you.
I want to agree with my brother Femi from Nigeria that both countries have a big problem. Many of our young people reached the Gulf states, never found the jobs. They were thrown on the streets. They were homeless, detained, they are in prison, and they're coming back. And I think what this discussion is telling us is that we have to we have to be prepared. Fine, we can block how many are going, but there are others who are coming back. How do we help them so that they are not re-trafficked? They are not, they are not able to go back, because you heard of even girls who tried many times in your country, who tried to go and find a fortune. So such an intervention by ECPAT, but also I'm aware there's a lot of funding which is coming in Nigeria to help stem and block the problem. And I'm happy that you already engaged in active to do that. And I think those good examples, like what ECPAT has done, need to be documented, shared out, and so that people can learn. Because many of the civil society and other actors may access money from other agencies, but if they can do the work well, they can do it properly well, I think that would be a big contribution. That's where ECPAT France gets a plus, and also WFAD for helping others to learn what is happening. So I'm very grateful. I know time is not on our side. Thank you for allowing me to share with the colleagues. Now I pass it.
Thank you very much. I know we have run out of time. In this 1 minute, I want to say thank you for everyone who has joined us this afternoon. And from wherever you are, we appreciate you coming and listening and learning from our experiences. But we also appreciate our presenter, Mr. Kassié. I would like to thank UNODC for allowing us to share. I would like to thank ECPAT France for allowing us to share this vast documentation from Nigeria and Uganda. I would also like to thank Wafad Criseda, who has helped us put together this link and also has been behind the camera supporting us with this session. And from wherever you are, thank you very much and have a good day, a good afternoon, and a good night. Thank you very much for coming. We wish you all the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.